Well, there's been global outcry over the severity of the fires in the Amazon, but data from NASA maps of fires around the world shows that more fires are being burned in Central Africa. Bloomberg news agency reports that over 2 days last week, Angola had about 3 times more fires than Brazil. So why? Here's the question. Why is there so little attention being paid to the fires in Africa? To tell us more about that, we speak to Professor Bob Scholes, who is systems ecologist from Wits University. Professor, thanks a lot for joining us this afternoon. Really, if we've seen that there's more fires on the African continent, particularly in the Democratic Republic of Congo, as well as in Angola, as opposed to the Amazon, the question then is, why as we as the media, and bringing us as the media, not reporting as much on those fires as we are with the Amazon fires?
So there are 2 fundamental errors involved in that analysis. The first is that the fires that they are reporting on are hotspots detected by a series of satellites, which are extremely sensitive satellites. They will pick up something as small as a garden fire in your backyard, and so they can, they really can see fires all over the show, provided there aren't any clouds in the way. And so you can't simply compare number of detections and say
well, we seem to have a little bit of gremlins in the system there. Let's try to get Professor Bob Scholes once again. Professor Bob, are you still with us?
I am still with you. Where would you like me to pick up from?
Let's pick up from the part where around the analysis in terms of even the types of satellites that are able to pick up on the small fires. And you're mentioning here the issue around the frying pan. So take it from there.
So you can't simply take the number of detections as a measure of how much fire there is. That's just how many hotspots it saw. And in particular, the fires that you worry about in tropical rainforests are actually difficult to see because they're under the canopy, and most of those you miss. The massive number of fires that have been detected in places like the DRC and in Angola are savanna fires. They are not woodland fires. They are not forest fires. They are burning in the grass layer, as they always have and always will every year. So this is nothing new in the slightest. If you look at the maps that have been published by BBC and by the other people who've commented on this, it's very clear that the fires in Africa are in the savanna regions, not in the forest regions. And while there are lots of fires there, and if you've looked out of the window in Johannesburg over the last couple of days, you will have noticed that our atmosphere has been very murky. Most of that is smoke blowing down from the Angola region, as it does every time this year. So far, we have no indication that there are more fires this year than there have been in previous years in Central Africa.
Well then, Professor, then in that regard, we say that we're measuring impact, right? So we're talking about the impact of the Amazon fires that would have, number one, on our ecosystem, when we're looking at indigenous wildlife, when we're looking at even the indigenous people that are actually living in there, as well as the emission of gas. So on that side, we know, and we've been able to go through the impact. When it comes to such fires, for example, in Angola and the Democratic Republic of Congo, are we then able to table the impact of those, and how do we measure that?
Yes, we are able to do that, and there have been many studies of that. So the fires have an effect on the global climate. It's quite different from the effect that we're talking about in the Amazon. When the Amazon rainforest burns, it kills the forest, and that carbon then goes into the atmosphere. When you burn in a savanna, they have been burning for about 7 million years. All that happens is the grass that burns regrows next year. So there's no net carbon impact on the atmosphere. There is an impact through the smoke that's produced and through some of the other trace gases. But that has also been going on for 7 million years. It's nothing really new. The impact on wildlife and people is also quite different. The wildlife and the plants which occur in the rainforest are not adapted to fire. So if a fire gets in there, for instance, due to climate change or because people are lighting fires there, it actually kills those organisms because they have no idea how to cope with it. But when fires go through in savannas, it hardly kills anything. The people are often lighting the fires because that's how they make a living out in those areas. You have to light fires in order to make the grass palatable. And the animals know that very well, and they just move around the fires. And that applies all the way down to the little insects which live in there. They know very well to move ahead of the flame front.
Well, Professor, then basically what you're saying is that when it comes to the fires in the Central Africa, as well as when we're looking at Angola, it's more of the circle of life, as opposed to when we're looking at it in the Amazon, it's more of a catastrophic phenomena that could actually impact on the very circle of life.
Yes, that's a good analysis. If you had fires in the Central African rainforest, and we do, that would be equivalent to fires in the Amazon rainforest. But these fires which are burning in the savanna fringes to the rainforest, that's a completely different and quite natural phenomenon.
Professor Bob Scholes there, systems ecologist from Wits University, giving us the latest when it comes to comparing, because we've seen this in the media, the fires that are happening in Central Africa versus the fires that are happening in the Amazon. Individuals, even on social media, saying that why aren't we paying specific focus on the African continent and what is happening there, perhaps, so that will give us a little bit of insight in terms of exactly how not or how to even handle both cases there. But still to come. Spring has sprung, well, certainly in the Western Cape. That story is up next. Stay with us.